Scram, Henry. Hi, YouTube. This is now my second video in what's now a series called Atheist Debate Spinoffs. So this is Atheist Debate Spinoffs number 2. So one thing about debates is you sit and watch them and you want to jump in at every point. You want to say, oh, this is what I would have said, or this is what they should have said, but then the debate heads off in another direction. And this is something that I know Matt is aware of, because he always complains about how one side will give sort of a rapid-fire string of arguments and you can only address one at a time, and at the end there are lots of questions left unresolved. So the purpose of this video series is to grab some of those individual threads that got left hanging, pick them up again, and sort of give my thoughts on it, and see whether or not the arguments hold water, whether there are good responses, and so on. We'll be talking about the same debate as last time. So the debate was between John Mark Miraval and Mark Miraval against J.T. Eberhardt and Matt Dillahunty. And the topic was, this time I have the actual topic, morality is not contingent on, nor does it require a deity of any kind. That was the position that Matt and J.T. were defending. That was the position that John Mark and Mark Miraval were attacking. The first speaker, who was John Mark Miraval, sort of based his objections on this idea of purpose. So specifically, he wants to base morality not on happiness, but on purpose. Or rather, he wants to define happiness as fulfilling your purpose as a human being. And then he asserts that purpose can only be that which is designated by something's creator or designer. And something that is not designated purpose by a creator or designer has no purpose, and therefore cannot have, well, that would imply that you can't have happiness, but then it would also imply that since morality is to fulfill your given purpose, that something that is not given purpose by a designer cannot have morality. Okay? I just think this is just a basically fundamentally flawed and absurd argument. So he gives an example of something that can have purpose that is design. You can draw a picture of something, his child can paint something, and assign purpose to that. Okay, so I agree that you can assign purpose to something that you create or design. Okay, so we're in agreement here. But then he gives two examples of things that don't have purpose. Okay, then there is an example of sawdust, and he says the sawdust was just a byproduct of something else I was making. It has no purpose. Okay, so he sort of says that he made the sawdust, but because he didn't make it with intent, he didn't have an objective when he made it, that therefore it has no purpose. But then he immediately sort of belies that claim and says, well, then we can do whatever we want with it. Okay, so that's implying that if you do what you want with something, if you're allowed to use it as you please, then it doesn't have a purpose. And I don't think that follows at all. For example, he says you could line the sawdust, you line your gerbil's cage with sawdust. Well, that's a purpose in my mind. That's as valid a purpose as anything else. Once the sawdust is lining the cage of your gerbil, then that sawdust has a purpose. The purpose is to absorb foul odors, right, or whatever the sawdust is supposed to do. Sort of assist in the sanitation of the gerbil's cage to keep your gerbil healthy and happy, etc. And that's a good purpose. That's something that it now does. It's something that it's supposed to do. We can measure the sawdust's efficacy at fulfilling the purpose that we've assigned it, and determine if we want to use something else besides sawdust. Okay, so this sawdust now has purpose. Okay, so that right there, I just think already dismantles the whole argument. Okay, so not much else needs to be said, but I have more to say, so we'll say more. So I think we have to go back and look at some of the definitions of the words in question, and see whether or not, the words are being used correctly, and whether or not the definitions that we've supplied for morality and purpose are good definitions. Okay, so let's start with a dictionary definition of purpose. Okay, purpose is, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary online, purpose has 3 potential definitions. The first being the reason why something is done or used, or the aim or intention of something. Okay, so split that into 2 parts. The first one is the reason why something is done or used. Well, I think theists and atheists agree that in order, a reason has to be something that's supplied by a thinking agent. Okay, but here it doesn't define that as being supplied by an object's creator. So an object that is created by someone can have a purpose that's assigned by the creator, but it says done or used. Okay, so these have nothing to do with creating something. The sawdust has purpose because we're using it for a reason. Okay, so that's my example of sawdust in the gerbil's cage fits perfectly the definition of purpose in this case. Okay, the aim or intention of something. Well, here it's the something has an aim, has an intention. This can be an act, I suppose. An act can have purpose because it has an aim or intention. Again, that aim or intention is supplied by a thinking agent. It doesn't necessarily have to be a creator. Indeed, here we're talking about the purpose of actions, and the doer of the action is the one that supplies the purpose. Okay, so again, doesn't have anything to do with a creator. Okay, this next one I really like, and this is how I sort of this is a definition I would be happy to use for a question like the purpose of life, or the purpose of being on this planet, or the purpose of being a human being. It's the feeling of being determined to do or achieve something. I think this is a really good definition because it fits sort of an intuitive feeling of purpose of our lives. It matches things I would say about my purpose, my purpose to contribute to society, to do something productive, to get the degree I'm striving for, to love my girlfriend. These are all things that I feel. Okay, so defining purpose as a feeling sort of satisfies my intuitions about feeling, and I think it also satisfies some of John Mark's thoughts about purpose. Because he says that happiness is fulfilling one's purpose in life. And what is happiness if not a feeling? If you feel that you want to achieve something, and then you achieve that creates happiness. So that indicates that the purpose is exactly that feeling of wanting to achieve something. So I think I think that sort of gets my point across about what purpose really is. When people talk about purpose, I think that captures what they're talking about. Okay. And so a designer can instill something with a purpose, but that purpose is still an intent, a reason, a feeling that designer holds for that object, that the purpose isn't inherent in the object. Okay, other people can think and hold and feel the same reasons, the same purpose for that object, but they can also have different ones. And depending on who has sort of legitimate rights to use the object, that may determine sort of an objective purpose to the extent that an objective purpose can be agreed upon. Okay, so let's go back to his definitions and maybe see what John Mark maybe really intended, and also ask the question, now that we sort of know what we're talking about with purpose, is this a good way to define morality? Does it even make sense the way that he said things? So he sort of starts with defining happiness as fulfilling one's purpose, and I think that's got it totally backwards. I think we know what happiness is, and there may be problems with using a superficial notion of happiness as a basis of morality. And certainly the example of a gambler who feels like happiness from gambling, may suggest that that's a complex issue. But that doesn't justify defining happiness as fulfilling one's purpose, because there are lots of other ways to get happiness. So I think that's wrong right off the bat. And second of all, it also doesn't work as a definition because he doesn't mean purpose to be what we think it means. If we assign ourselves a purpose, something that we feel that we want to achieve, he might say, well, that's not your true purpose because only God can assign your true purpose. Well, I still may feel happiness from reaching a goal that I've set for myself. Even if that goal is something that's not moral, that's orthogonal to morality, like getting a job or meeting some superficial or materialistic life goal, there's no denying that those things can cause happiness, at least for some amount of time. So I don't think that's what he means either. I don't think there's any satisfactory way to define happiness in that way. And also, it's not satisfactory to define morality based on purpose. Again, because purpose is subjective. Purpose is held in the mind of the one who assigns purpose. And so there's no way to get morality from purpose. And in fact, he even uses kind of a circular argument. The question was posed, how do we determine what our God-given purpose is? And the answer that was given was by looking to our moral feelings. Okay, so we get morality from fulfilling our purpose, and we determine our purpose from examining our moral feelings. So that seems to suggest that what's actually going on here is that we're defining a system of morality based on our moral feelings. And that's problematic as well, because people can have wrong moral feelings. People can feel that things are moral or immoral that are not in fact moral or immoral. And there have been examples of that throughout history. People have felt that slavery is moral. People have felt that discriminating against homosexuals is moral. People have felt that various sexual acts that don't harm anyone are immoral. People have feelings about morality that are based on just gut instincts. And there's no good argument to be made that a moral feeling truly reflects sort of a better or higher notion of morality. So if we base our knowledge of our purpose, our so-called God-given purpose, on our moral feelings, that itself leads to a unsatisfactory and sort of definitively subjective view of morality. Okay, so I don't think that's what John Mark intends either. He doesn't assert that any feeling of morality that we have reflects true morality. Okay, so what this all boils down to is the definition of morality that's actually being proposed, and the definition of purpose that's being proposed, is that morality is whatever the creator of the universe intends for you to do. Okay, so you define purpose as being what the creator of the universe intends for you to do, and you define morality as being what the creator of the universe intends for you to do. And I believe that this is highly problematic. Especially since now that we've defined morality as being what the creator of the universe intends for you to do, then that creator is then by definition a moral creator, but we don't get any say in the matter, and whatever we think about morality or whatever we observe to be true about morality actually doesn't matter. And so if the creator of the universe intends for you to kill the neighboring tribes and take their land, then that becomes moral. And here, if I'm in a debate with someone that says that that's true, then I just say, well, we do not have similar definitions of morality, so we can't talk about the nature of morality because we mean different things when we say that word. And I mean things that are good for humans, and you mean something that is decreed by an authority figure. And so it's just then we lose our basis for discussion. We're no longer talking about the same thing. Okay, so I think that's what this purpose thing boils down to, is they're attempting to say that the only satisfactory definition of morality is that which is decreed by creator. I reject that that's the best definition of morality. I reject that the purpose that's instilled by the creator is the only legitimate purpose. I think purpose can be experienced by any thinking agent, okay? And one purpose isn't necessarily better than another. You have to evaluate the various purposes on objective grounds. So if God designates the purpose of Palestine to be occupied by the Jews, then we don't have to accept that purpose. We get to look at it objectively and weigh the merits on either side with things that we value. We value the well-being of people, the suffering of people, and we can use those criterion. Okay, so those are the problems with his version of purpose. But then I'll finally address the criticism, the way he used this idea of purpose to criticize the secular system. He says, if we don't have a purpose, an inherent intrinsic purpose that's exterior to our own experience, how can we be supposed to do anything? Something that doesn't have a purpose isn't supposed to do anything. And my answer to that is that what we are supposed to do, according to the view of secular morality, what we are supposed to do is the actions that objectively fulfill the purpose of creating and sustaining a society that minimizes the suffering and maximizes the well-being of its members. Okay, so where is the purpose in this supposed to? The purpose is held by the members of the society. They are the thinking agents that are feeling and designating that purpose. Okay, so we have purpose. We are the ones who determine that purpose. We feel that purpose. We have reasons for that purpose. And that allows us to say what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. Okay, I think that adequately refutes the purpose-based argument of John Mark Mirabel against secular morality. And I think it also, once we unpack it, demonstrates exactly what they're talking about when they talk about morality, and how it's different from what secular people mean when they talk about morality. And then it's up to the listener to decide what they actually think morality means, and which point of view better reflects that. So that's it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. What do you think the words morality, purpose, etc.? What do you think those words mean? Do you think that I took their arguments in a direction that's not justified? Any comment you may have on the discussion so far? Anything else about the debate or my video? I'd love to hear it in the comments. So thanks a lot. It's been fun.